Okay, hopefully that started. Hello, everyone. Hey, welcome to Saturday Night Live Life Recovery Meeting. And we're glad you're here. And we're looking to have a good meeting, and we're going to have a better meeting because you're here. We got Paul's going to be doing the MCing. Zach's going to be doing the steps, and Tommy is going to be doing our reflection. So our topic is step 5, and it's step 5 is we admit to God, ourselves, another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. And this is a really beneficial step. And we're going to be talking tonight. The topic that Zach selected was feelings of shame. And boy, that is a big topic, right? It's a big topic. There's just you can talk on that for years and years, decades. But tonight we're going to be talking about the feelings of shame. We're going to be hitting a few of those things. I am going to be talking the topic that I'm going to be taking off of that subject of step 5 and the feelings of shame. I'm going to be talking about the 5 ways shame can shape people's lives. Okay. And then number 2, second part of that is 5 ways out of feelings of shame. So anyway, I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be helpful. So strap in, hang on, and let's start off with a little bit of relaxation and breath time, because it's always good for us. So if you're so inclined, just take your hands and place it over your heart. Why do we do that? Is because it causes you to focus on your heart. Where you touch, that's where your focus goes. And we're going to breathe, and we're going to be focused on our breath. So we're going to be focusing on our heart, our breath, and also we're going to be thinking about something that has gone well today. So think about something that's gone well, something you did well, something that's gone well, something that was good. So think about that. Now breathe in. We're going to breathe in twice. Once, inhale. Twice, inhale. Real deep, and then exhale through your mouth. Just let it all go. Then inhale once through your nose. Inhale twice through your nose. And then exhale through your mouth. Just let it blow out. Just release it. Just let it go. Just let all the stuff go, all the tension go. Now inhale once through your nose, twice through your nose, and then just let that breath go all the way out. Think about those things that were happened that was good, things you did that was good. It's kind of a takeoff on that gratitude exercise. Dr. Andrew Huberman says that type of inhalation, the two breaths, actually relaxes your body in a deeper way. It affects your mind, affects your heart, affects your blood pressure, affects your ability to think and relax. And so anyway, so that was our exercise. So thank you again for being here with us. And I'm going to turn it over to our MC. So over to you, Mr. MC.
Well, good evening and welcome to Saturday Night Live. We are glad you're here. And the reason we're here is because we love you and we care about you. And we want to be able to help you get out away from your stuff. Because your stuff is ugly and it's hurting you, and you're our friends. We don't like we don't like things that hurt our friends. So we want to help you dump your stuff. Gonna have some tough lesson tonight. When you get into step 5, it's some hard work, but it's valuable work and it'll make a difference in helping change your life for the good. So we're going to start out with reading the steps. Everybody welcome Tommy. Tommy, come on down.
How's everybody doing tonight? I'll start here with step 1. These are out of the Recovery Bible. We admitted that we were powerless over our problems and that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, we made a decision to turn our wills and our life over to the care of God. 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to other human beings the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. 7, we humbly asked God to remove our shortcomings. 8, we made a list of the persons. Oh, hold on. Oh, seems to want to stop at 8. Hold on. Sorry about that. A little unprepared. Well, looks like it doesn't want to give it to me now. I just got this new computer. I'm learning how it works. Somebody else got the rest of those? Do you have those in front of you there?
There we go. Thank you, Tommy. It's all right. We got past number 5, so that's where we're at. We're good to go. We do have our technical difficulties on Zoom, so it's not that big a deal. So we're going to move on along and go on into the step work for tonight. And tonight is going to be Zach with step 5. Zach, come on down.
All right. How's everybody doing? Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. I've been having some technical difficulties myself, but I think I'm connected and the volume is all right. So we'll get into step 5 here. So step 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. And like Paul said, this is where, you know, all these steps are work, but you know, that's a pretty hard statement. You know, if you're gonna admit the exact nature of your wrongs, you know, because in step 4 we made an inventory. And so, you know, I think a lot of us read ahead to step 5, and I know I did, you know, when I didn't quite work step 4 correctly, and I saw that I was going to have to, you know, tell somebody. There's some things I didn't put on my step 4 inventory, and but that's not really working step 4. And so we have to, you know, we have to be real, because you know the truth is we want to get better, and you know we're only as sick as our secrets. And the thing that I picked tonight is feelings of shame. And you know the truth is dragging that secret or that thing into the light is what, you know, causes it to lose its power, you know. And a lot of times we feel like nobody is as bad as us or has done what we've done. And so hang on, are you okay? Okay. Sorry about that. Anyway, so we feel like nobody has done what we've done or has done what we've done or as bad as we are, because we don't let people in and we don't talk about our stuff. And the truth is, we're not all that different. We all got stuff, we all got things that we wish that we had never done or never been a part of. And we've all got things that we regret and that we don't want to share with other people. But we don't really work step 5. I've known people and I've worked step 5 with people, and they don't really want to do the part of step 5 where they share with another human being. And I'm not trying to be hard, but the truth is, if you don't share with another human being, you're not doing step 5. And the reason why that's in there is because it's really freeing. It's a powerful part of step 5. As hard as it may be to tell God about some things, even though we know that He sees these things anyway, but for us to admit them and own them, to acknowledge them in our life, whether they happened, whether we did them, we were a part of them, or they happened to us, we participated in them. That's easier in a lot of ways than to tell another human being. And so when I was thinking about this week, I wanted to preface, and we've been talking about it a lot, it seems like, this year. But it seems like it keeps coming up. You don't have to tell just anybody. If you feel like you don't have anybody that you want to trust with your step 5 inventory from step 4, it doesn't mean that you just have to pick somebody so you can get past your step 5. You don't need to share that with just anybody. You need to share that with somebody you trust. And so at the same time, don't use that for an excuse to not complete your step 5. I believe that God puts people in our life that we need. They may not be people that we would pick, but we need these people. And so if you're working step 5 and you feel like you don't have anybody that you can trust with your step 4 inventory, I would encourage you to reevaluate that, think about that again. Look at the people God has placed in your life, because they're there for a reason, especially those people that you may not have picked. And and if you still don't see the one, pray about it, and be willing to hear what He says, not willing to hear what you want to hear. And because that's something that I have to be careful of in my own life. Am I willing to hear what I want to hear, or am I willing to hear what He's saying? So I picked shame. I was sitting with Doug talking, doing part of my self-care, and we were talking about what I wanted to pick, and I saw the shame thing, and I knew right then. I kind of looked over everything else, but I knew right then that was the one. Shame and I had a real deep relationship at one time, and it had a lot to do with the abuse that I had in my life, and I felt like I was I'm trying to find the right word here. I'm trying to think about things 2 or 3 times, because my filter seems to be gone the last couple of days. So everything wants to come out R-rated, so I'm trying to be good. Maybe I should just say it how I feel it. So I felt like I was dirty. I felt like I was damaged. I felt like I was tarnished or tainted. I've been mentally, physically, and sexually abused, I've had my shame predominantly comes from the sexual abuse I've suffered in my life. I've had 5 sexual abusers, all women. Um, I've had babysitters that sexually abused me. I've had strangers that I didn't even know that I was come in contact with sexually abused me. I've had I had a friend's sister when I was a child sexually abused me. And these weren't like one-time events; these were ongoing. And I never told anybody. I never asked for help. So if my mother sees this, you don't have to say you're sorry, Mom, because it's not your fault. Okay. So the reality of it is that for a long time in my life, I felt like when I got up out of bed every morning, I reached over and picked up and grabbed a coat, a jacket, of shame, if you will, and I put that on, and I walked around in my life in that coat of shame. That's how it felt, because I felt like I was different than everybody else. Not that I felt like I had more stuff, bad stuff happen to me, or that I, had, I was worse off than anybody else, because I knew other people around me had the same thing happen or been harmed that way. But I felt like I had been damaged in such a way, or I was so dirty because of what these people had done, that if somebody that I loved found out, they wouldn't, or they couldn't love me, like a spouse or a significant other. And so I didn't tell anybody, for a long time. And when I first started talking about it, it amazed me how many people, when they heard my story, they wanted to tell me theirs. And I remember the first time I was probably 19 or 20 years old, and I shared at a youth conference, and I had a line of people that were waiting to talk to me when I was done. Not that I was a great speaker, but that they just wanted to share with somebody else that, hey, it happened to me too. And because they thought they had never heard anybody talk about it, and they wanted to talk with somebody else that it happened to them. And I was surprised by the adults that came to me as a kid, and I was surprised by the men that came to me. And because this is in our society, we view this as happening to women, and it does, predominantly, but it's not really been, men are not really discussed as much. And so I'm gonna kind of back off that rabbit trail there. So shame, if you allow shame to, shame can dictate and control your life, and it will destroy your life if you let it. And like I made that statement, I didn't feel like I deserved love, or that if I found love, if anybody found out that these things had happened to me, they would view me differently, and I would lose that love. And so that was because I felt that way about me. Okay, that's what shame is. I felt that way about me. It wasn't that other people felt that way about me. That's how I felt about myself. And I talk a lot about being your own best friend, and because that's so vital, because if you walk around life hating yourself, it's very easy for you to think that others hate you, or that they will easily hate you, or that if you have a negative or an off interaction with anybody else, then, oh, they're mad at me, or they hate me, or we got a major problem. And so, like, for example, Paul and I are friends, and we hang out, and we go fishing, and let's say that Paul's not feeling good, or he's just quiet. I think, oh, he's quiet, he's mad at me, I've done something wrong. Or that was how I lived back then. And it may not have anything to do with me, but everything was my fault, You know, like if you know somebody that says they're sorry all the time, even if whatever happened that you're talking about had nothing to do with them and they're sorry for it, you know, that's shame. You know, that's a person conditioned that everything is their fault, or they feel so poorly about themselves that, you know, that's just, you know, so therefore you must feel poorly about them too. So, you know, I was looking at the questions here as I need to wrap up here, but, there's a lot of good questions here. You know, I come out the first one the best here. What scares me about sharing, you know, the exact nature of my wrongs with another human being? We kind of covered that. You know, it's just scary. You don't know how they're going to take it or perceive you, or, you know, or how they're going to react, or if they're going to continue to be your friend, you know, or whatever, you know. And so, my whole point about that question is if you have a good friend that you trust with your stuff, and that friend decides not to be your friend, the reality of it is they weren't your friend anyway. And this will sound very harsh, okay? And then maybe it's just the way it needs to be tonight, but you're better off knowing the truth that they're not really your friend than thinking they are. That's the truth. You know, a true friend doesn't co-sign your bullshit. They tell you the truth, whether you want to hear it or not, in love. It doesn't mean that they're a jerk. You know, that's different. Okay. But they're willing to lean in and say, hey, you're headed for a cliff. I don't want to see you go off it. Even if you're wrapping God's name around all of it. That's not co-signing your BS. And, you know, if you tell your friend your stuff and they get sideways with it, and all of a sudden they're better than you, or they don't want to be around you, that's their problem. That's a them problem, not a you problem. And you're better off knowing the truth than continuing to think that you have a trusted friend and continue to take things to them. That's the truth. And I believe that God doesn't leave us alone. We may not always get the people that we would pick, like family. I've said this for years. Family, you know, doesn't always show up or be what you want them to be. And, you know, the truth is, it's not even really their fault a lot of the time. They may not have what it is that you need them to give you. They just may not have it. You know, if, you know, maybe they don't have the love that you need because they never got it showed to them, and they don't know how to give it to you. And maybe you feel like, well, dang it, they should have learned. And, you know, I had those same thoughts when I was younger. But the fact is that that is my right to say that somebody should have learned. You know, it's my choice if I want to learn. And so, the truth is that a lot of the stuff that we think is personal is not really personal. You know, and the people that we feel like let us down, I think they desperately wanted to give us everything we needed. They just didn't have it to give because no one gave it to them. And sometimes you just don't have the opportunity to learn the skills and the tools that you need. You know, life is hard. Life is hard for everybody, you know, and we don't know everybody's life before we got here, or when we're little. You know, we know what we see and what they show us. We don't know all of it. And so, you know, if you're dealing with shame, you know, my encouragement to you is that you everything wants to come out so hard tonight. If you're dealing with shame, my encouragement to you is that you wake up because you have self-worth and personal value. You matter and you mean something. I don't care what you did. I don't care what it is. I do not care what it is. I don't care. I've been sexually abused by multiple people, and I don't care if you're a sexual abuser. You have personal worth and value. God made you for a reason and you matter. That's the truth. You know, your choices harm somebody, but that doesn't mean that that's the sum total of who you are. Now, our choices have consequences. You know, my choices had consequences. My choices locked me up for a while. So, if you've been abused, like I was, I let that rob me of my life for a long, long, long time. I wore that coat of shame, you know, and it wasn't hurting the abuser, it was hurting me. And so, you know, I had to deal with my shame. I had to find some self-worth and personal value. I had to believe that stuff. I had to dare to believe it, even though I didn't. I had to work on that. I had to find somebody I trusted and work on that. I had to go to counseling. You know, I had to be willing to get some help. And that isn't a weakness. That's hard. You know, that's tough stuff. You know, working on yourself, you know, the people that make fun of that, that's the coward because they're too scared to do it. And so I just encourage you to you know, get some help, you know, work on yourself, you know, become your own best friend, quit being your own worst enemy, quit being the worst. You know, we are the worst person to ourselves on the planet. You know, we get mad at other people that mistreat us, but who mistreats us the most? We do. So we got to deal with that shame. And and the way we do that is we find personal self-worth and value. And when you do that, when you value you and when you have some worth, guess what? All those people around you that don't value you and treat you like crap, you don't let them be around you because you value you. So that solves a lot of problems. So that's what
Well,
I have tonight.
I want to add something to that, Zach.
All right.
Not only does you're saying that don't be around them, but when you they'll probably choose to not be around you if you start valuing yourself.
That's
because
true.
you're acting less like a victim, and evidently they are, how can I say, looking for victims. What do you think?
Yeah.
So
The
they'll leave.
reality. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just said they'll leave.
Yeah, they will leave. They will leave. And the fact is that, you know, somebody around. See, the a lot. All this stuff goes together. You know, and I don't want to take too much time. You know, and I'm sure you're going to talk about it, Doug. But the truth is that when you live in shame like that, you are the victim, whether you want to be or not. I'm not trying to say you're playing the victim, and you may not even know it, but you're your own victim because you hate yourself. You're horrible, you know, and so, you know, and so people gravitate toward that because guess what? If you're around, they can put you down and feel better about themselves, and so you draw people like that into your life. But when you change that about yourself, they leave, and the ones that hang on and don't leave and they keep trying to put you down, you start having enough of that, and you leave them or they leave you. That situation ends. So it gives you you know, healing comes, and it just, there's all these things in your life that are problems, they start disappearing. you're nicer to you, and you're better, and you're healthier, and then you have less, you have less negative people in your life and less harmful people in your life, and maybe you have a better job because that job put you down, and then just all these things, life keeps improving and getting better and better and better. Because if you like yourself, and if you love yourself, you're not going to put up with any of that other garbage. And you start looking and realizing that you put up with a whole bunch of garbage because of how you felt about yourself. So anyway, that's what I got. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Zach. I'm thinking tonight of a couple of different people we're talking to. We're talking to people who need to do step 5, and then we're also talking to the group that needs to listen to those people. And I remember one time, quite some time ago, somebody wanted to share something with me and made sure before they told me that I wouldn't laugh at the situation, because to them it was an impossible big thing. And I swore I wouldn't laugh, but when they told me, I laughed, and they got really mad. But it was such a small thing, and it was something I had already easily conquered, and it was so easy to take care of that I was tickled by how hard they were struggling, which is wrong. And that's what I'm wanting to say. When somebody's brave enough to come to you and ask you to listen to what they have to say, you need to be prepared, if they set off a bomb, to be able to hear what they have to say without a reaction. Because they're going to read your reaction, and if you react incorrectly, you can push them back in the cave, and we don't want to do that. And they've taken a brave step, and we need to support that. And it doesn't matter how we feel on the inside, our outside needs to reflect compassion and understanding. So that's my. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? What Zach shared?
I agree with what you said there, Paul, and that's something we have to really work on, controlling our response, what I call a non-response. And so it's so important because it's not, it's very often it's not what we say, it's how our gestures, our looks, our tone, that communicates so much. And of course, they say that 90% of our communication is nonverbal. It's our gestures and stuff. And so, but when it's hard, it's hard. And when it's scary, and it's tough. And it's tough to reach out, and we need to do our best not to hurt or harm someone that has the good intention to try to make a change, and they're dealing with shame. Okay. And so, and if we shock them with more shame, it just sends them right back, like you said. So back to you, Paul.
Any other thoughts or comments? If not, then Tommy's going to come give his reflection on step 5. Tommy, come on down.
Hello, everybody. I wrote this. I put feelings of shame. Hold on. There. Feelings of shame can attack my mental health and trigger me emotionally to react to life in ways I would normally not. That can lead to a relapse, may it be with drugs or behaviors that throw me off track from my recovery. Feelings of guilt cause me to become reclusive to the world, and isolation mixed with guilt because of shame is a danger zone for any of us. And I was thinking about what Jesus said. He said in John 8:7, "He who is without sin among you, let him be the first to throw a stone at her."
this kind of takes me back to last week's topic of freedom through confession. I've learned in times of feeling guilt and shame that if I just find someone to share what it is that made me enter this zone of life, I can begin to get better if I just let it out. And most times I found out we are all works in progress and I'm not alone in life, thinking I can single myself out. Feelings of shame most of the time tells me lies about who I am and how I do things in my daily life that is not healthy. So I watch the way I involve myself with others and the types of things I do and say, so I don't beat myself up later knowing I either shouldn't have been around those people or done the things I did in their presence. That's all I got.
Thank you, Tommy. Anybody have any
Welcome.
comments?
I just wanted to say something right here, Tommy. That's so important what you wrote down about isolation and relapse. Because I've been thinking lately if we could somehow study, these things that we do to ourselves, this lack of self-worth, shame, and all these things, and loneliness, and how we isolate, and then if we could correlate those things with relapse, I bet it would astound us.
Yeah.
The loneliness and the lack of self-worth and shame, and then relapse and suicide. If we could somehow study that, I bet it would scare the world, honestly.
I agree.
And because like Doug says all the time, we're looking for love, we're seeking pleasure, not pain, and how often do you think that when we were in addiction, we were trying to escape ourselves? I was trying to escape myself more than I was anybody else, and there were times that I was trying to escape, my spouse. My first marriage, there were times I was trying to escape my spouse, and I'm not trying to, hate on her. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just sharing my story. But I wanted to escape myself more than I did anybody else, including her. I mean, how many of my relapses was correlated to that emotional pain, all that personal stuff, trauma, and all that. I think that. But you gave the recipe right there: isolation and relapse. That was really, really good.
Well, I'd say thinking this too. In the past, like right now, I'm about 100 miles from home. And usually when I find myself 100 miles from home, it's because I felt guilty of something. I felt shameful of something, or something bad happened, and I went and used, or I some type of escape, and I'm 100 miles away from home thinking that would just solve it. Well, today, I was laughing because I had a bag of gummy bears and I didn't have a bag of drugs, and I'm 100 miles away from home and I'm fine. And I'm going, that's some growth, Tommy. That's cool. You're actually comfortable in your own skin, exactly where you are, Thank you.
That's good, Tommy. This topic of shame is so big and so complex. There are so many ways into shame. Okay. And Zach touched on it. And I'm going to go over some things here that will touch on it. But as I said in the beginning, it's so big. And I had a person that talked with me this week, and he wanted to apologize because he had messed up. And of course, my normal standard answer is, well, what did you learn, when you messed up? And he said, well, he learned that he was going to stop saying that he would never use again, because he believed that, so he thought he was bulletproof. So he put himself in a position that opened himself up, and which then caused him to be vulnerable. And I told him, I said, if I'd heard you say that, I would have tried to caution you about that mindset, because it is such a trigger, because we think that beating up on ourselves or being hard or drawing these stiff lines, which the intention is nothing wrong with that, but it's a false belief, because if we think that we can never be tempted or have problems or have issues, then we're lying to ourselves. So if we're lying to ourselves, that means we're susceptible for getting tripped up. And that's what we do a lot of times, even in shame, is we go to lying to ourselves, or we throw spiritual salve onto ourselves and try to cover up our pains, and we spiritualize everything, or we beat up on ourselves, telling ourselves that we should forgive ourselves and we should forgive everybody else, and it's one and done and it's over. And how did that work out for you? Right? So I kind of jumped in here and took over, but I'm going to pass it back to Paul and let him sum it up. And John, you haven't said anything. If you had any comments, I'm sure Paul will let you get in here. So back to you, Mr. MC. You're on mute, Paul, because I had to mute you because there's sound.
Thought I opened it back up.
Oh, there you are.
There we go.
Yeah, I had to mute you a while ago because you're having a bunch of bleed through come through. And so I had, you may not be hearing it, but it's getting picked up off your phone.
It's probably a
somehow.
fan on the other side of the room.
Okay.
Anyway, did you have anything, John? I'll take that as a no. Yeah, when it comes time to share with somebody what's going on in our lives that we don't really want to share, we act like we're walking around with a big window that everybody can look through and see everything bad that we have done. And Tommy, you use the scripture of let him without sin cast the first stone. And then there's another scripture that says that we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But it's hard to know that, but kind of like what the guy I told you about I laughed at, which I shouldn't have laughed at. But when he told me what he had done, I wound up sharing with him that I had been in the same situation. And then when we do that, it brings light to it. But the fact is, we walk around thinking that we're the only one who has ever done anything that bad, and we're the worst of the worst. And we're not the worst of the worst. We've just had our baggage, and our baggage has gotten us down. We look at other people and think, well, they really got their life together. And you don't know it, but they're looking at you and saying, man, he looks like he really got his life together. Because we all get lied to in our own head that we're all on an island by ourselves and nobody cares. And we have to carry all this alone. And when you open yourself up to that other person and you trust them, then you're only carrying half the weight. And then when you open up in a group like this, and however many people there, you have 10, 15, maybe 100 if they're listening on YouTube and everything else. You have that many people sharing and carrying that same weight, and in the light, it becomes so small. Anyway, Doug is going to give us some really good tools tonight, and I'm going to let Doug have it now. Doug, come on down.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Thank you for what you shared, and thank you for Zach for what you shared, because you really oftentimes you go deep, and it's very helpful to a lot of different people. People tell me all the time things that different ones share on here, you in particular, how it really helps them. And so that's meaningful. And by the way, Zach, I was jumping around on our different platforms because we're putting this out live on 5 different platforms, 3 on Facebook and 2 on YouTube. And so, but your mom was watching somewhere along there, and she says, yeah, a lot of people don't want to hear stuff like you're saying. And so, anyway, so she was supporting you on that. So at least it looked like it. It was she was actually watching Saturday Night Live on Facebook. So the scripture that Tommy was talking about was out of John. I think he said verse 7 is one that he was talking about John 8 verse 7. But when he was talking about that, and that was the scripture reference that they gave us out of the Life Recovery Bible, and told the story of the woman that was brought to Jesus, taken in adultery, and somebody challenging Jesus, saying Moses said that we're supposed to stone her, and so literally that. A Pharisee, according to the scriptures, the Pharisee was actually shaming her and presenting her, and so she just laid there in the dirt, and then challenging Jesus, because it was all about trying to trip Jesus up. And it's really, if you look at that story and you look at how Jesus handled it all, he did not shame her. In fact, he cared about her, and but the number one issue was to deal with the challenge that the Pharisee was giving. You know, sometimes this is gonna be a little rough to you church people out there that may be listening. And we just had a preacher come on my my Facebook right here, or the live. I don't know if he still watched or not, but he clicked on there just a second ago. And I don't want to offend anybody, but oftentimes the person that uses shame the most is oftentimes the church people, preachers, because it just works so good. It just tears people up and gives you all kinds of power and control, but it harms people. And when you harm people, it harms you too. That's a fact. And so Jesus here was navigating his way through this situation. And so instead of jumping to conclusions or to a reaction, he stooped down, and I think he was letting things kind of process. Maybe he was thinking, I don't know if Jesus need to think. I know I do oftentimes, but he stooped down, and they were challenging him. And so he finally said, all right, you know, that's the law. And whoever is without sin, you religious people, throw the first stone. And so, you know, and he didn't even address her, okay? He was addressing them, and then he stooped down again, and he went to writing in the dust. And some think that maybe he was in a non-direct way communicating to these folks, because they recognized what he was writing in the dust. Now, the point is, he didn't write it in stone. He wrote it in the dust. Maybe it was just in where they saw it, or, you know, and he didn't put a name to it. He didn't even shame them, but they felt the weight of it, and they responded to it. And when it was all done, they were gone. All of the accusers were gone. And he asked her, well, where's your accusers? And said, well, they're all gone. He said, well, I don't accuse you either. go and sin no more. You know what you've done. Just forget it. Fix it. Change. And so and the point of tonight is he didn't shame her. He loved her. He reached out to her in love. And that's something that we have to practice doing. A statement from this material was with God's help, we can accept his forgiveness and be released from shame. Man, that's so big. With God's help, we need God's help. She needed God's help to accept forgiveness. Because see, if she doesn't accept forgiveness, she's going to repeat the same thing over and over, because that's the way it works. Because we can feel, when we feel guilty, when we feel shameful about it, we carry that around. And as Zach so well said, his ripple effects and layers of acting out and was a result of shame that he was carrying around, trying to avoid it, trying to cope with it, trying to numb it, trying to hide it. And it takes so much energy. It takes so much out of your life. It distracts you from life. So what we need to do is let God help us accept his forgiveness and then release that shame. Now I'm going to be talking about five things that impact us with shame, and that actually shape people, because our shame shape us. Zach demonstrated that in his story. And so we'll be talking about that. But I'm going to start off with some definitions. Before I get going, does anybody want to say anything? John, is that your hand up? No, okay. Okay. All right. So we'll go forward. And now I got this off the web. I got it off of the Clearview Treatment Center. It was clearviewtreatment.com. And so there's a lot of good pieces in there. Now this is not all, this can't be everything, but this is some things, okay? And so find some stuff in this, hopefully that will be helpful for you, okay? Even if you could find one piece in here, okay? Either whether to help you identify your shame or help you to eliminate your shame. So the first thing is shame is a powerful emotion, as we've already talked about, that has the potential to shape our lives, and not for the good, okay? And shape our lives in significant ways. Webster dictionary said, the definition says shame, about the definition of shame is a condition of humiliation, disgrace, or disruption. Okay, shame will disrupt you. Now, a lot of people think shame's a good thing and they use it all the time, okay, because it's a powerful tool. But people who experience shame feel worthless, embarrassed, humiliated, and also unclean. Hi, Jeremy, you just came on. I'm glad you're here. And so people experience shame for a number of reasons, okay? And here are some of the reasons. Shame is often felt when someone experiences or commit or associated with a shameful act, okay? Perhaps a most common a precursor of shame is trauma, some sort of trauma. Okay. When something terrible happens to a person, they often feel a great deal of shame what has happened to them. Okay, Zach talked about that. The things that happened to him, it wasn't what happened to him. He took on that's what I have become. Okay, he was saying that I was shameful, not what happened was shameful. Okay, not what happened was bad. Okay, but I felt that way. He took it upon himself, and that's what he's talking about, trauma, in this article. When something happens, we experience experienced by people who commit horrendous crimes. Sometimes we do things that we feel bad about, or like live in addiction. We feel bad about that, or experience stigma of maybe some sort of defect or mental illness or something like that. We compound whatever has happened, whether it was something that somebody did to us, or we actually did, or we made a mistake and made unhealthy choices, or somebody victimized us, and so then we compound whatever happened, and then we feel bad about ourselves. That's inappropriate. Okay. What is appropriate is to recognize if we've made a mistake, then that we feel bad about that. That's called guilt. That's about what we've done. Okay. It's what's happened, but it's not that I'm bad, but what has happened is bad. Okay. And so I know that may be a really challenging area for somebody, but shame is powerful, and it grabs us emotionally, and it picks us up, and it will direct us. It will change our trajectory of our life if we allow it, because shame does that probably to all of us to some degree. So what we have to do is we have to grab a hold of our life. We need to grab a hold of our emotions, and that's what's happened, or that's what I did, but that doesn't mean that I am bad. Those were bad choices, or those were bad acts, or they did that. And so we have to begin to turn that around. Okay. And by the way, I don't know if I'll talk about that or not. We're going to stay on this side of the fence. Okay. That we need to address that. So I'm going to touch, before I run out of time, I'm going to touch the 5 things that impact us in shame. Okay. So here are 5 ways shame shapes people's lives. Okay. Number 1, people who live with shame often avoid relationships, vulnerability, and community. I think Zach touched about all of that when he was talking about it. That I'm going to say that again because I think it's very important. And we need to recognize this, because some of you may be wearing shame and you're not totally aware of it. But it says people who live with shame often avoid relationships, vulnerability, and community. Well, relationships are hard, right? They're challenging. And so that means you are vulnerable in relationships. By the way, hi Michael, you came on just now, and also Linda. So glad you're here. And so relationships are hard, and being vulnerable is challenging because, man, Zach talked about that. Nobody wants to be vulnerable, because then we reveal our shame, and then we think other people will feel as bad about us as we feel about ourselves. Right, Zach? And so what we have to do is we have to recognize these areas, and the only way that we can get better And I know I'm going to slip into the other 5 here, but the only way we can do better is we have to address these areas. Okay, we have to step into them. We have to do it on purpose. Research shows that shame leads people to hide and to self-conceal. Okay. Okay. People who feel shame, we're still on number 1 here. People who feel ashamed, hide from community and from friends. Okay. People who mess up or that are, we know they disappear. They have, and that's the story that Paul told a while ago is so important. When somebody does come out of hiding, we need to be very careful how we handle it. We need to realize this is a fragile moment. Okay. And hey, listen, we all make mistakes. So if you don't handle a fragile moment delicately, we just need to learn. Okay. No shame. We have to grow. And then clean up your mess. If you handled it inappropriately, do your best to clean it up without making it worse. Okay. All right. People who, I already read that. They avoid vulnerability and never share their true self with the world. So when we're vulnerable, we just close up and hide, and all the good stuff that's in all of us just kind of wilts away, and it's so sad, so sad. And we do that to ourselves. We minimize ourselves. Hey, the devil doesn't have to do it to us. We do it to ourselves. What do you think about that? Number 2. Boy, I'm moving right along, aren't I? People who live with shame are prone to suppressing their emotions. There you go. People who live with shame are prone to suppressing their emotions. And shame is associated to suppression of our emotions, particularly in women. I put that in highlighter there, that according to their research, which I don't see that's not true. I think, but they say women are more prone to that. They also say adolescents are prone to that. So that could be men or women. But I think we're all prone to that. Men and women. Some of us are more susceptible than others, men or women. That's Doug's opinion. People who feel ashamed of who they are or ashamed of something that perhaps, that doesn't sound right. People who feel ashamed of who they are or ashamed of something that happened to them, there you go, often keep their thoughts and feelings wrapped up inside. When we're ashamed of it, we just close up, we keep it in. I think we all really know that. That's the way I lived. That's what and to some degree, even though we're probably better than we used to be, we still probably do that, right? But we also, hopefully, the healthier we've got, we know that we have to open up to somebody somewhere. Okay, that's the reason why the step talks about to another human being, to God, ourselves, and another human being. We have to make that step. We talked a lot about that last week, and Tommy touched on it earlier himself when he's giving the reflection. So, number 3, people who live with shame often feel worthless, depressed, and anxious. Shame can be a contributing factor to depression, anxiety, and low self-esteem. People who are continually ashamed live out live out of their difficult emotions. And they have these mental battles that they have to contend with each day. Number 4, people who, now remember, we're talking about shame that shapes people, okay? Shame shapes people, okay? So if you're carrying around these thoughts of shame, these beliefs about yourself, you alter your life, you restrict your life, you change your life, you hide your life, okay? And then you feel worthless, depressed, and anxious. Number 4, people who live with shame are less likely to take healthy risks. Isn't that the truth? And because of that human trait that Zach made reference to, that we're all designed with a survival mechanism to avoid pain and seek pleasure, and that's a survival mechanism. And so when we feel this shame, then we instinctively feel that to survive, we have to avoid it. We have to hide from it. But the fact of it is, that's not how we grow. That's not how we develop. That's not how we mature. We all know that. But it's real hard to override that survival mechanism of avoiding pain and seeking pleasure. You know, finding the easy way. It seems easy to hide out when we feel shameful instead of going ahead and dealing with it. Is that too much? So, I'm going to go into number 5 here. So we have to be willing to take healthy risks. And that means we have to be willing to go ahead and endure some of that pain. We have to be willing to see if we will be rejected, because that's the only way through this mental emotional minefield. And that is so stinking hard. But that's the path of health. Now, I need to bring some balance to those statements right there, because some people will then say, well, I'm just going to close my eyes and go headlong in and go full bore and say everything all at once. And that is too risky. That is, well, let me just say it that way. That is not smart, okay? Because you have to be sure that you got a safe, healthy individual that you can talk with, that you can share with, that can love you through your stuff. And so you need to have a measured steps in addressing your shame. There are people that I've talked with that sometimes it takes months, sometimes it even takes years to build a relationship with people, to be able to touch things in their life that they've hidden from themselves and from everybody else. And you have to be very careful, because it's part of their survival mechanism to have all these walls of protection around them, and you can't poke too many holes in their walls of survival. So you have to be very careful how you do it. And so you need to take care about yourself. You can't overwhelm yourself to where you reveal so much that you go in a tailspin. Overwhelm yourself and you act out, or you use, or you go get drunk, or whatever your coping mechanism that you have used, that you're working on, trying to get better. So I just wanted to touch that. I hope I said that well enough. Yes, I was hoping you'd want to say something. So go ahead.
I just wanted to see if you could, what you said there is so important about not poking too many holes in somebody's, because people that don't understand what you're talking about, they want to help somebody get it all out all at one time. And we think that that sometimes is the best policy, but that really isn't, because we leave, because sometimes people do that and the person they're doing that with doesn't have the skills or the ability to give them anything, to give them anything to go on with, and so I mean, if you can, I think you should share a little bit more about that, because that's really, really important. And it almost sounds like we're kind of contradicting ourselves, but I mean, that's really, really important. We don't have to share everything all at one time. And the truth is that you may think that you know everything you got going on right now, but the truth is God's a gentleman and he's giving you what you can handle, believe it or not, at the moment. And as you work through this, he's going to reveal some more to you, and you're going to get a little bit more. And that's why you hear us talk about how we work these steps, 5, 6, 7, 8 times over the years. And that's why we do them through the, every year we do them again, because we're constantly, working on ourselves and improving. It's not that the work that you did last year doesn't count. It totally counts. I mean, it's powerful, the work that you did last year. I mean, but you're continuing to get better. I mean, life is that way. We improve our whole life until we die. We heal and get better until our time here is done, and so if you could, I just think if you can, I mean, it's up to you, if you can talk more about not poking too many holes in somebody's, surviving, because that's really, really important.
I think I can. I got someone said last week, and someone restated it to me this week through the middle of the week. I think it was last week, that how I've asked people, how can I help them? And the statement was, if I knew how you could help me, then I wouldn't be there asking for help, which is true. And I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just saying, until we open up, and we won't open up all the way. And if you try to force yourself, I know some people, just thought of one person, that man, when they finally get an idea what they need to do, then they are so hard and rigid and demanding and forceful on themselves, and they drive themselves in the ground and harm themselves, because it's 100% all or nothing, and it basically blows them up. Okay. So, and in this statement, I want to go ahead and finish up what I just said there, that I ask people, how can I help them? And it's part of, and I think I may have said this during that same time, but that's part of beginning to get people to lean in to the process and to emotionally open up. Because a surgeon, and I'm not saying that I'm not saying that I know everything here. I know a little bit of something, but I know surgeons, they don't want to operate on people until they are either unconscious or they've been numbed. Okay, because people can't handle the pain. Okay, I was listening to somebody the other day and about a surgeon in the Army, a crash unit, and they were talking about they had somebody really bad that had been blown up, and they didn't have morphine, and they needed to operate right then, but they didn't have morphine. And if they operate right then without morphine, it would kill them. But if they don't operate right now, they're going to die. And so I'll go ahead and tell the rest of the story. So someone said, Well, I'd heard this study about injecting people with a placebo and tell them it's morphine, and because what else are we going to do? So they did, and so they injected them with some water, sterile water, and the patient and most of the people that was involved in the procedure didn't know either, and his body responded to the placebo. In other words, like it was pain medication. So anyway, I don't know how I got off onto that, but when I deal with people, when I talk with people, I have to get them to willingly lean in and open up, and we take what I say fine cuts on people, because you can mess up people if you go too deep, too quick. So surgeons, they want people to not to inflict extra extreme pain. Also, as you was talking, Zach, I was thinking about doctors that give antibiotics. They give you a course of antibiotics. They don't tell you to take all of them at once. I wonder why they don't just have you all do it, take the whole bottle at one time. Well, we all probably have a pretty good idea that wouldn't help you. That would harm you. That would overload your liver, maybe your kidneys. So it might shut you down. So a little bit would be good. A whole lot would be damaging from a medical standpoint. Would you agree with that? And so
I was thinking when you were talking, my dad died when I was 8 years old. He died of cancer, and he had tumor cancer is what he died from. And what happened was he had the tumor in his stomach, grew as big as a football, basketball, and they wouldn't get it out. The problem is when they went in there, they got all that they could, and then they discovered that it was over both of his kidneys. And so they cut everything out they could, but they couldn't cut that out there. He would have died instantly. So they did what they could, and then they were done. And then they said, hey, we did all we could, but it's going to grow back, and it's, but he has a chance, and maybe he'll live long enough to where we can do something with that, or maybe it's another treatment can do something with that. So, and this may sound negative or anything, but I was thinking when you talked about that, we think let's take all the bad at one time, but sometimes in recovery, that's all we've known for so long. And if you take everything bad away from me all at one time, it'll kill me, because I'm gonna go get something else, and so sometimes you got to take a little bit at a time, and it's the same way with mental health and things like that. I mean, you can't do it all at one time, and that's okay. And so sometimes it's about it's healthier to a little bit at a time get you a long time of recovery, whereas I've known people that tried to do the whole thing all at one time and they didn't find recovery. I've known people that died. And so it's we believe in harm reduction. Not everybody believes that. They're all or nothing, but harm reduction counts. I mean, you making a little bit of a change today matters. It counts. If I drink one less beer today than I had yesterday, that matters. And if I do that again next week, and I do that again next week, and next week, and next week, and next week, I'm done. And I mean, that stuff matters. And we have to get out of this all or nothing mentality, because I was in an all or nothing mentality for a long time, and I never got anywhere. So I'll try to be quiet.
That's good, Zach. That's real good. And you remind me of a lady. She worked at the Lafayette House, and this has been several years ago, probably further back than I can even think, but she was having some issues. She worked, I think I said this, she actually worked there. And so I went by to check on her, and we talked outside the facility. And she was just struggling with all kinds of things. And, you know, sometimes when you knock over one domino, it takes a lot of others. And she was with everything else that was going on in her life, she was also trying to quit smoking. And the quit smoking one was pushing her over the edge. And that was causing her to just spin out. And you say, and she had already dealt with other issues and substances, a lot of issues and substances. And so things were coming together in her life, but she was still juggling a lot of emotional issues. And she was fighting this battle, and she was feeling ashamed and condemned. Okay. And I told her, I don't know if I should have said her, well, it was Lafayette House, right? So, and so I said, you know, she's talked about this here at Saturday Night Live 10 years ago or more. And so I said, you know, God loves you whether you smoke or whether you don't smoke. And yes, I think it'd be better for you not to smoke, but that's not the worst evil. Okay, it's not the worst stuff in the world. Okay, and you've let go a lot of the worst stuff already. Okay, but if it causes you to drown mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, then it's not that big a point right now. I mean, you're fighting too many battles. You're gonna, you can wait. In my opinion, you can wait on that one. And of course, we talked about it quite a while because that was a whole new concept. Because there was a lot of religious influence on pressing her, and some of her own beliefs, okay, too, which they're all maybe good, but the fact of it wasn't helping her, okay, at that moment, because she was inflicting stuff. And I didn't tell her what she had to do, because I don't make choices for people. I just made suggestions that you might want to look at that. And she did. And of course, I didn't know for sure how it worked out until years later. I think it may have been years later. And that was a significant point in her life. And that helped her, gave her enough mental and emotional space and energy to address some of these other things and not feel so shameful and condemned, and continue to grow in her spiritual growth path arc, if you will. And she got better. And yes, she eventually did stop smoking and hadn't smoked for a long time. And so, but it could have wrecked her. And I remember I had a man that I loved. In fact, I'm going to say his name because I did his funeral probably 10 years ago, maybe more. His name was Mark Welsh. Drove a bus here for me. Good man. He became a bus captain and was involved in Galena and brought kids from Galena to the church. And he and another guy worked together. And I know on multiple occasions, those two guys brought over 100 kids out of Galena to church. And he was doing a great job. But the sad part, we're talking about smoking here, and I don't know, this just jumped in my head, but I'm just going ahead, I want to go with it. He couldn't quit smoking, and he just hated himself because of that. And that hate caused him to just hate himself so much, he started backing out because he felt he disapproved of himself. And I understand some of that, but he let go of all the good. He couldn't forgive himself. He went back to drinking. He had drank so much he would pass out, and then he would go into having seizures. And I'd gone to the hospital so many times to see him after he'd gone through one of those episodes. And his heart, he had such a great heart, but he was so hard on himself that he couldn't forgive himself, wouldn't let up on himself, and he couldn't forgive himself because he was going to that place. And eventually he decided to leave, and he went to Texas. And they don't know how he died. All they know they found him in his car upside down in a pond. So it's tough stuff. I got a little emotional there. That should not be. It just should not be. It shouldn't be. And I some great people with great hearts can be just destroyed because of their own harshness, their own shame. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. And boy, I need to grab a hold of myself and kind of pull it around. I don't even know if I got through number 5. People who live with shame are more likely to relapse back into problem behavior. I don't know if I read that a while ago. Research shows that people who struggle with alcohol and drugs are more likely to relapse into their behaviors when they experience shame. Isn't that the truth? Gosh. Shame can be the reason people choose not to take steps towards healthy choices, healing. People who live with shame believe they are worthless, and that they just treat themselves in a worthless way and harm themselves, and they destroy themselves mentally, physically, and emotionally, and maybe even spiritually. I threw the maybe in there on purpose. So, 5 ways out of shame. How about that? Is that okay? Shall I go forward? We'll hear what they have to say. Number 1, seek out relationships and commitment to vulnerability with safe people. Do everything in your power to find community. I think community is a pretty good word, and safe community, healthy community, okay? Loving community. And community can be 2, 3 people. Maybe it's just 1. But it's better if we can have a healthy community. And we're going to be starting up Saturday night here live The plan is next week. They just about got everything, all the heating and air hooked up around here. The electrician was here Friday. And so hopefully all that'll be done this week and we'll be here and we'll start. It'll be rough, but we'll start. We got to start sometime and we'll begin. But anyway, and to try to go another layer of community. Okay, number 2, move out of your head. And that's what we talked about here. What talking about Mark and others. Move out of your head into the open. Okay. Sometimes we carry this stuff around in our head and we don't even know it until it comes out of our mouth and we hear it with our own ears. Or somebody says, wait a minute, do you really believe that? Would you tell that to a good friend or somebody you care about? Would you make those same demands of them? Those harsh, unrealistic judgments? Okay. I know some hardcore, rigid people do it but they think that force makes people better. But I think they're coming out of their own shame, to be honest with you. Because hurting people hurt people. Okay. So move out of your own head. Okay. And shame finds healing when it is taken outside. Tommy alluded to that earlier. And the way to do that is, according to step 5, with him, with ourselves, being honest with God, with ourselves, and at least one other human being. Number 3, develop self-compassion. Say that again, Doug. Develop self-compassion. Important things we always say 3 times, and I want to say it a 3rd time, and that is develop self-compassion. We need to consider ourselves as our best friend, not our worst enemy. Okay? Instead of beating up on ourselves, we need to help ourselves. Now, I'm not talking about being selfish. I'm talking about being healing and loving, being kind to yourself. Okay? So self-compassion, and consider that consider those things that you say to yourself. Would you say that to a good friend? I know I've already said that, but I'll say it again. And begin to respond to yourself with love and care and concern, just as you would respond to others with love and care and concern. We have to recognize that we need to give ourselves a break, and in doing so, that will also make us better relationship-wise with other people, because we'll give them a better break. You may think you're already giving them a break by you saying, "Oh, well, I'm not judging them," but the fact of it is, if you're judging yourself, it's going to come out. It does come out. Okay, consciously or unconsciously. Develop self-compassion. Number 3. Number 4, take one small risk. Okay, the way to help us to move out of shame is we got to take a step. We got to take that step. We got to take a small step through that fear. Okay. Now, don't run and jump off the cliff. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about one small, they are talking about, which I am also talking about, is take one small risk. Okay. Attempt something that might end up in failure. Okay. Because you believe it might be. So, but we have to do it. So we run the risk of trying to do something that may end up in failure. But listen, just because it ends up in failure doesn't mean it's all lost, okay? Because it's difficult to make that, and then you have to. I mean, we don't have a mental emotional path to walk down oftentimes to begin to be vulnerable with people. So we have to learn it. We have to develop those skills. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to pick the wrong people to be vulnerable with. But we can't harm ourselves by not making those steps. I know I'm a little preachy here, but this is big. It's really big. And the only one that can really help you, because nobody can fix you, you have to address it yourself. We can help, but we can't do it for you. You have to take a risk. You have to be willing to do something. You have to look at what you're thinking about yourself. You have to look at the way you're feeling about yourself. You know, what am I thinking here? Is that healthy? Is that appropriate? What am I feeling? What's those feelings? You know, I need to look at those feelings. Is that the way I want to be? Is that really in my best interest? Is that the person that I want to act like, be like, feel like? Is that really the direction I want to go? Is that the trajectory of my life that I want to pursue? If not, then we need to begin to start making a slight change. You have to be willing to start working on it to heal yourself. God will help you. Other people can help you, but you have to be willing to engage yourself. Number 5, I think this is a big one. Believe that healing is possible. Okay, because it is possible. We have people on this meeting tonight, and that are watching this meeting. They know that things that it's possible. Now, the truth is, sometimes it's start and stop. But see, we have to. In my own experience, I know that I have to convince myself, and it's a start and stop, and this is the way kind of the cycle goes. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, acting out, being involved in a community group or in church, we start and things start to get rough, and things have gotten better. So what we do is oftentimes we have a relapse, backslide, quit, because we're starting to really make some progress, and it gets hard. So there's a part of us that says it was easier the other way. I don't know if I can stay in this anymore, so we stop. We go back. We're back there for a while. I don't like this. This is I'm back to the same place that I was. That's the reason why I went this direction before. I don't want to stay here. So we start down that same healing path again. And we run into some of the same obstacles. But now we have more mental, emotional, spiritual evidence saying, yes, this is the healthy path, and I need to stick with it. But there's a part of me, the further I go, there's that other part of me that wants to pull me back. If you can remember Romans chapter 7, starting about verse 14, said that I would do, I don't do, and that I do, I don't want to do. Oh wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death? And we have this tugging and pulling going on. It's normal. Apostle Paul's the one that talked about this. That's what's going on in his life. So it's normal. Okay. We don't want to stay there. We go back, we do the back and forth. We all do the back and forth. But the fact of it is, hopefully we go 2, 4, 8, 10 notches in the healthy direction. And when we fall back, we don't fall back as far. Now we keep everything that we've learned, okay? But we're proving it. We're testing it out. We're changing our thoughts. Yes, it was right. No, this is not what I want. This is not where I want to stay. This is where I want to go. I don't know if I can make it, but this is better than that. I'm convinced of that. And we keep working on it. I hope that's so abstract. I hope that helps somebody. Because that's some of my life path, and that's everybody I know. So believe that it's possible. Make a good or healthy decision. in the right direction. Okay, the right direction. I kept pointing this way, right direction. And if we can just make one notch at a time. I think of a clock, the Big Ben in the UK, where in England, that that big old clock has all kinds of notches, and it's a huge wheel, and it just goes one notch at a time. Can you do one notch at a time? Just take one notch at a time, one little bit at a time. And so and sometimes we have to say, these are the feelings I'm feeling, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway, because I know it's in my best interest. It's healthy. It's a right choice. It's a healthy choice, and I choose to do it. I'm going to endure the fear or the pain, and to do that. Now, again, we're talking about one small risk, one small step. Okay, just like when they went to the moon, they said one small step, okay, for mankind. You need to make those choices, those steps. Believe that you can choose to make good choices. You can. You can. How many times have I heard shameful statements come out of people, and they beat themselves up by saying that I can't do anything right. I'm not worth it. I mess up all the time. Everything I do is bad. That cannot be so. It's impossible for you to do everything bad, right? It's impossible. Think about it. It's impossible. So, believe that you can make healthy choices. Just find some little healthy choice that you can make. Make it. And then maybe the next day, make another one. Or maybe next week, make another one. One step at a time. So, those were the 5 things that you can do. And hopefully that was helpful. And any comments before I do my thing?
I just wanted to say that what you said was so important. All that was really, really good stuff. And you were talking about your friend there, and that was so important, because that's exactly what happens to us if we can't give ourselves a little room to breathe, and we just have to be so rigid and hard on ourselves that because we can't just do everything right, then we end up doing, sometimes we just give up and go back and we do more things wrong. Instead of focusing on the things that we've accomplished, the victories, we focus on the one thing. I mean, I know people that have given up 5, 6, 7 substances, but they hate themselves for cigarettes, like what you're talking about, and like right now, the thing that's going on in the area that I hear the most about is this war on opiates that went around, the last couple of years, and now there's no opiate, there's no pain pills for anybody. The elderly community got kind of left out in the cold, and now they're left in pain. And so now you have a lot of elderly folks that are using marijuana for pain. That's the truth. And they feel like addicts because they're trying to have this, some life and less pain. And they're like, I mean, or you have somebody that's stopped using, meth and all kinds of stuff, but I'm still struggling with marijuana, and I'm like, hey, if you could choose one, thank God we have this one. You're doing great. Focus on the good things. Focus on the victories. Focus on the things you're not doing. Don't focus on the things you're still doing. It's okay to breathe. It's not like you're not working on it. People think just because you haven't whipped it yet, you're not working on it. You're working on it. It's happening. Just, it's okay to breathe. It's okay to breathe. And one last thing I want to say, and then I'll shut up, is an old preacher one time said something to me, and I thought it was really, really insignificant, but I never forgot it, and I use it today. And he said, He said, you know, young man, he said, God's a shepherd, you know, he's not a butcher. And he walked away. I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? You know, and it dawned on me one day, you know, a shepherd leads the sheep and he takes care of the sheep and he cares for them and he defends them and he fights off predators. He gets out front and he leads them so he can see if there's any danger in front of them. A butcher drives the animal. So God is not driving you to do something. So if you feel condemned or driven, that is not Jesus. That is not the Holy Spirit. That is not God. So it was really good tonight, Doug.
Thanks, Zach. Well, may the Lord bless. Oh, go ahead, Paul. I'm sorry.
And we had a conversation quite a while back that I want to mention again. Most people think when they fall, it's kind of like climbing a ladder, and they get so high and they fall and they have to start back at the bottom step and they've lost any ground that they've gained. But reality, it's more like a road. You take the few steps down the road, and if you go 100 feet and fall down, you're still 100 feet down the road. You don't have to go back, touch base, and start over. You can just get up and keep moving on. And that's the way you conquer the addiction, is by just keep moving forward, like you said, one step. And a mistake doesn't mean that you have to go back to the very beginning and start over. Just get up and move on.
Amen, brother. That's good, Paul. Thanks, Zach. And thanks everyone else. I went way longer than I had anticipated, I guess, because I wrapped some stories in there. So, but I want to say, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may his face shine upon you and give you his peace, because he does love you and he wants to put his peace on you. Receive his peace. Let God smile upon you and let that peace come upon you and keep you in Jesus' name. How about that? Thanks for listening. I'm going to turn it back over to Paul, and he's going to take us out, and I'm going to go over and shut us down. So, and next week, we're planning on being live down here with everybody. So, okay, Paul, it's yours.
All right. Well, we talked about some tough work tonight, when you have to begin to trust somebody and take that one little risk, you can start to move forward. Thank Doug for giving us tools to work with. We're here because we love you and we want to help. Hope to see you next week in the building.